One of my favorite things about doing these quest analyses for The Witcher 3 is I'm getting a feel for how game designers structure their missions and stories. There's a lot more that goes into this than I'd realize, with quests and missions being designed to have very specific and different functions. For example, the goal of the Nilfgaardian Connection is to get you from point A to point B. But what's really interesting to me is whether or not CD Projekt Red is able to make what essentially is just a transitional quest into something that is actually compelling. And the only way I can answer that is by analyzing it. So here is my Witcher 3 quest analysis for the Nilfgaardian Connection. In this, the fifth main quest in the game, Geralt arrives in Velen with his primary lead on Ciri being a Nilfgaardian agent named Hendrik. Geralt travels to the inn at the Crossroads where he asks about Hendrik before having to deal with some of the Bloody Baron's goons. Geralt then proceeds on to the town of Heatherton where Hendrik lives but finds that the Wild Hunt beat him there. However, before being tortured to death, Hendrik leaves just enough clues to point Geralt towards where Ciri may have possibly gone. This quest at its most basic could be described as Geralt travels from the Hangman Tree to Heatherton. That's it. Honestly, if we're looking at efficient game design, they could have just dropped you off in Heatherton in the first place. But is it really worth it to be efficient if it's not effective? And if we skip the trip, we'd be losing a bit of the soul of this game. As much as I adore the dialogue and moral dilemmas, some of the most resonant moments for me are just simply existing in this world as Geralt. This is a game that is very much about soaking in the journey. In many ways, this is like the Velen version of Lilac and Gooseberries. That was a quest that taught you about the general gameplay loop in a small playground. Nilfgaardian Connection shows you how that gameplay loop evolves in a much bigger and more decrepit playground. And while there are side quests here, they are non-intrusive. One of them is super short and requires barely any time. The other one, Funeral Pyres, sends you a fair distance off the beaten path, but once there, you come to a blockade preventing you from crossing the Pontar. And while there are ways of getting past them here, these are non-trivial, so this is the game's way of whispering to you, "Psst, go to Western Velen!" And the notices you pick up in these nearby areas also are working to get you over there. Both the Wild at Heart quest and the Woodland Beast quest are located either on the road to Heatherton or in Western Velen already. So in essence, the player is being corralled in this quest. But that's not a bad thing. It's like a nice, pleasant guided tour. Okay, maybe pleasant is not the right word here, because this is Velen after all. Velen is its own character in this game, and the path you take in this quest shows you just how mired in muck that Velen actually is. It creates such a palpable and miserable atmosphere that permeates the next several hours of gameplay. And that atmosphere is in full force when you get to the inn at the Crossroads where the Bloody Baron's men show up and harass Geralt.
Who's this one?
Brave warrior, looks like. Got 2 swords, see?
Oi, great boy. What's the point of having 2 swords?
Wonder if he keeps an extra prick in his trousers too.
You fucking deaf? Gonna say who you are? Or do I need to loosen your tongue with me knife?
So tense, and the music and this being a time choice adds some real weight to this moment. And the sequence does a great job of playing on your emotions. These guys are such ass clowns, it's kinda hard not to just say this.
Go away, or I'll kill you.
So that option was pretty obviously going to lead to death and destruction, but the other choices kind of play on your expectations of an RPG. Like when I saw the I'm a Witcher option, my immediate gut reaction was, everyone here is racist towards Witchers, so they're just going to want to kill me. So this felt like a poor choice if you wanted this to go peacefully, but it's actually the one that results in the cleanest scenario for Geralt.
I'm a Witcher. Heard you wondering about my swords. Well, one's for monsters, the other for humans.
Don't touch him. Don't even look at him. Worse than lepers, that lot.
And then there's the option where you can completely swallow your pride and be magnanimous.
How about I buy everybody around?
Why would you?
Got the coin for it. Simple as that.
This is the obvious way to calm things down, but there are more time choices right after to complicate matters, and the non-violent solution is non-intuitive by the way I play RPGs. Like, I'm an honest person. If I'm not going to Novigrad, I ain't saying I'm going to Novigrad. So lying here doesn't come naturally to me. But at least in the case of this choice, the other option seems clearly antagonistic, so you might choose it by default. But then the next option is even harder. 30 years of playing RPGs and I'm stuck in my ways of asking for more information whenever I can. But the game punishes that curiosity here. There are 2 more time choices and be too nosy and you'll end up in a fight. It pays to assess the situation, to actually realize these are vicious goons who aren't really up for chatting, Which is what I think the game is trying to teach you here. Don't just do what you've always done in RPGs. However you manage this situation, it impacts the Bloody Baron quest. If you left without a fight, you get into Crow's Perch pretty easily. But if things get violent, you are not allowed into Crow's Perch. You have to find another way in. As for immediate repercussions, the innkeep reacts very differently based on what happens.
Have you any idea what the Baron will do when he learns of this butchery? The village! He'll tear it apart before anyone can say it was some wandering mutant done it. Thanks for not starting a row with those swine.
This is not a huge deal, but I enjoyed different dialogue, and I love how Geralt handles things should the innkeep implore him not to cause any more trouble.
I'd rather you not make any more trouble for yourself, for us both.
Well, that's an interesting way of avoiding trouble. Decapitate a guy on the innkeep's doorstep. So far this quest has been setting up the atmosphere in Velen. The Bloody Baron has been established as a presence to be feared, and we are learning to hate Velen because Velen is a shithole. But the primary purpose of this quest in terms of narrative, we gotta learn what the Wild Hunt is capable of. And it is unpleasant. You arrive in Heatherton to find it dealing with some serious climate change, and this poor soul survivor tells you a terrifying tale.
And the dusk went crimson like blood. Save terror through and through. Hendrik screamed. Then he begged. By the end, he could do naught but moan.
While I don't think their presence in the game is executed all that well going forward, the Wild Hunt is appropriately menacing in this quest. My only nitpick about the Wild Hunt in this quest is that they know that they need to find Hendrik because he might know where Ciri is, and they go to the trouble of finding him in this town and murdering all the townsfolk and destroying the town and torturing him to death. But then they don't go through his house and lift this rug up a little bit to find this easily discoverable trapdoor that they could just bust through? Does that sound reasonable? But other than that, this is a powerful sequence that does a great job of establishing the Wild Hunt as a terrifying force. We'd already seen them back in Geralt's dream and witnessed some of their power when they chased him and Yen to Vizima, but here we see how far they will go to find Ciri. And it adds some desperation to the main quest and Geralt's motivations to keep Ciri from these monsters. But as it becomes clear when Geralt finds Hendrik's hidden ledger, he is too late in keeping her away from a different type of monster.
Drunken swine. So-called Baron hosted subject at his castle, or should I say, illegally appropriated fort. Reason unknown. Talk to Baron at Crow's Perch.
Now there are other clues in this ledger. It mentions her being sighted in Skellige, and the one about the witch is the one that I've always done first in each of my previous playthroughs. But I think a major reason the writers have so many casual mentions about the Bloody Baron is that the intended quest order would be for Geralt to rush over to Crow's Perch immediately, because both the player and Geralt have heard enough to fear for her well-being in his company. I think this is a nice jolt of urgency for the main quest, in case the sight of these monstrous skeleton frost demons wasn't enough. Unfortunately, I don't have any monstrous skeletal frost demons working with me, otherwise I would use them to encourage you guys to like and subscribe to my channel. Instead, I have to use the power of my words and maybe these puppy dog eyes of mine.
Go away, or I'll kill you.
Oh my god, Geralt, okay fine. You don't have to like and subscribe to my channel. No, leave me alone.